Welcome back. Watch the first video if you haven't already. This is the second video in a two-part series on transformative experiences. So recall that Paul says that something is transformative if it's personally and epistemically transformative. Is parenting transformative? Paul says yes, it is transformative because it's both personally and epistemically transformative. And because of this, you can't use rational decision theory to make your choice, and you must instead make it authentically. And that's called the authenticity solution. And we could also do what's called the discovery principle, which I'll call the discovery solution. She doesn't, but I'll treat these as two different ways to approach the problem. So is parenting transformative? I want to say yes, I agree with her, but there are some caveats. I've got three issues with what she's saying. The first issue is that there are some gray areas. For example, if you have a dog, is that transformative? If you adopt, is that transformative? If you conceive and have a child, but then you give it away to an orphanage, is that transformative? What exactly is it about parenting that makes it transformative? Paul doesn't quite tackle this, though she does give some examples of what is transformative in parenting, such as the intensity and uniqueness of the extended act of carrying the child, the physicality of giving birth, the recognition of the new fact of the existence of one's very own child, and the exertion involved in caring for newborn results in a dramatic change in one's physical, emotional, and mental states. And having a child, at least ordinarily, involves the transformative experience of gestating, producing, and becoming attached to the child you create. But I would have liked to see something more fine-grained, because this issue here prevents me from calling parenting a transformative experience as it is. What exactly about parenting makes it transformative? For Paul, eating a durian is not transformative unless you are a baby. And babies could have a transformative experience eating a durian because they might have never had a fruit their whole life. So likewise with parenting, what if you're 50 years old? What if you've held a newborn child? What if you've babysitted for a lot of children? Maybe you've had several dogs. Having a child might not be so transformative because you've already experienced snippets of every part of parenthood. My second issue is with her authenticity solution. So recall that her authenticity solution is authentic self-governance influenced by knowledge under subjective modes of presentation, and she puts a lot of emphasis on imagination. So we have to imagine what it's like to undergo having a child or to undergo getting a cochlear implant. And if we do this from a first-person point of view, which she puts a lot of emphasis on, and use our imagination to think about what it's like, oh, I get to hold a child in my arms, so on and so on, then we are able to make the choice. I find there's an issue with this, because it doesn't really seem to solve the problem. We already agree having a kid is epistemically transformative. If you have a kid, then you don't know what it's like until you have the kid. So how does imagining having a kid help? You can imagine holding it in your arms, you can imagine conceiving the kid and feeding it, having some sleepless nights. You can imagine all of this, and you can then act authentically, according to Paul, whatever that means. But how does that solve the issue? You still don't know what it's like. And also your personal values will change. We already agree on that. Authentic solutions don't seem to be the answer. What about Paul's other solution, the discovery solution, or the discovery principle? Recall that loosely, that's the idea that you make the decision not on how much you want the outcome to happen, but on how much you value discovering what the outcome's like. So I want to have a kid, not because of how much I value having the kid in the future, but rather I want to discover what the experience of having a kid is like. I don't see how this is a solution either. That doesn't seem to be exactly what we want when we're deciding. There seems to be replacing one epistemic principle with another one. The actual principle of I want to have a kid, let me think of the reasons, versus I want to have a kid to discover what it's like. Those don't seem to be the exact same issue. So she hasn't solved the issue, she just moved it to a whole new framework which we don't ordinarily care about. We might care about it sometimes. So what do you think? Is parenting transformative? And if you do think it is, then what part of it's transformative? Can we capture the part of parenting that is transformative? Or is the question in general missing the point? Maybe I'm missing the point. Okay, part 4, I'll talk about some criticisms of transformative experiences in general. The first minor one is that Paul seems to be ignoring some experiences I might call transformative which don't actually involve any external aspect. So I'm thinking of Sisyphus pushing a rock up a hill. Famous Greek myth of this man tortured by the gods. He's forced to push a rock up a hill for eternity. He's in sorrow, but Camus, this French philosopher, said, what if he reframes his whole experience such that he wants to push the rock up the hill. Okay, at this point, it seems like Sisyphus has gone through a transformative something. I want to call it a transformative experience, even though there's no actual external experience aspect. But he has totally reframed his mind. He's changed his core values. It's definitely personally transformative. I don't know if it's epistemically transformative. My second issue flows on from this a wee bit. I find her definition a little ad hoc. What do I mean? She says something is transformative if it's personally and epistemic. I don't see why you need both. Just having one of those seems to make something transformative. And I'm not sure if there's something missing from here. I'm not sure where her definition comes from. It seems to just come from thin air, which is fine. Some philosophizing can be like that, but it doesn't seem justified. I would have liked to have seen more grounding on exactly why something must be personally and epistemically transformative, and some trimming of the edges. So does it need to be personally and epistemic transformative to an extent? Is it just a little bit? She doesn't provide much in the way of edge cases, which would have helped really expand her definition. One aspect of Pool's whole idea that she seems to be ignoring is whether other people should go through transformative experiences. So let's assume a authenticity principle, right? So I want to become a parent because I think it'd be very nice to hold a child in my arms and raise a little person. So let's assume that's true. Should I decide that for others? And this question may seem like you don't need to decide it for others. You know, we live in a liberal democracy. But some decisions do force you to make the decision. For example, having a child is transformative for you as a parent. But what about the child? Presumably, it's also transformative for the child, right? They're going to undergo different core values. You know, they didn't have any before, and now they have some because they're born. The child who's born is going to know stuff that he didn't before. So I would claim that being a child is itself a transformative experience, or becoming into the world. A similar idea is, you know, if you're a vampire and you're biting someone and making them become a vampire, should you do that? How do you decide whether to make someone else undergo a transformative experience or not? You can ask them, and it's easy in cases where you can ask them, but let's say you can't. Should you think about hypothetical consent? So where does that lead us? Paul says that you can't use rationality to decide whether to undergo a transformative experience because of very good reasons. I think her authenticity solution and the discovery principle fall short. So what should we do if we want to decide whether to get a cochlear implant or have a kid or become a vampire? I don't know. I'm genuinely unsure. I think she has raised a really interesting problem. I don't have any good solutions. Do you have one? Post in the comments, please.